Hey guys, Doc back for another exciting adventure with you guys in Videoland. It is almost the end of the year. It's almost Thanksgiving. And so I'm gonna put this out a little bit earlier than I did last year, but I don't see anything in the solicitations that's really just gonna blow me away for December. So this video is gonna be my top 10 best books of the year of 2025 and 5 honorable mentions. So let's go ahead because we got a big stack of books to talk about. First up is Aquaman by Jeremy Adams. Sorry, I blinked for a minute. Jeremy Adams, and mostly by John Timms on the artwork. This book has simply done something that no other Aquaman series has ever done. It's made me care about this character. It's made me realize that Arthur is more than just the guy who can order a fillet of fish for the Justice League. He is a king. He has a kingdom. He's just as powerful as Namor. And in this series, we're kind of introduced to the blue Justice League. There's going to be a red Justice League, and then Aquaman's force is for the water, so it's going to be the blue Justice League. But the thing about it is, you get to see so much through the course of this book. Arthur has lost his kingdom. It's been, his people have been imprisoned by an evil demigod named Dagon. And he ends up having to take on Dagon face to face through the course of the series. And like I said, it's one of those things where I knew this character was as important as the rest of the DC Pantheon, but he's never been somebody that I could really read. I think I picked up some of the Marty Egeland and Jim Calafiore issues that Peter David wrote back in the 90s, because Peter David was one of my favorite writers. And I just couldn't get into the story behind that character. So Jeremy Adams, John Timms, and company, you guys have done an excellent job. It's one of DC's absolute best books. And I can't wait to see what Jeremy Adams does with this property next year. All right. You know, I've heard some negativity around Battle Beast, but I really enjoy this. This is Robert Kirkman and Ryan Ottley, and to me, it's one of the most fun books on the shelves. And it's kind of funny to say that because the whole premise behind this book is Battle Beast is trying to find someone who can better him, someone who can beat him and kill him. That's what he's looking for, is somebody who's a better swordsman, a better fighter than he is. And through the course of these issues, and unfortunately it's going on a hiatus until next year, but through the course of these issues, you see him take on bigger and more expansive foes with each issue. And he's got a starship with a robotic AI that pretty much hates him and wants to find the biggest and the baddest in the known universe or universes to take this guy on, because he just doesn't feel like, you know, he's like, hey, if you want to die, that's on you. You know what? And I'll help you with that. So I'm loath to call it the Dr. Kevorkian AI, but it's there to try to help him find his greatest foe. And along the way, he picked up a little runt who is supposedly the king to a fallen kingdom. And eventually, in the last issue of this that's come out, they get to that fallen kingdom, and Battle Beast fights the foe that destroyed, or one of the foes that destroyed this little imp's kingdom. Now, I'm not going to say whether or not it turned out in Battle Beast's favor, but I will say that This is some of Ryan Ottley's best artwork I've ever seen. It is absolutely just packed with action and excitement, and you can tell that when he was doing Amazing Spider-Man, back, I guess, about 2018, 2019, something like that, you could tell that he enjoyed doing that book. But this is a labor of love. And for Robert Kirkman, it's one of his creations that he created in the Invincible universe and the Invincible book. And so it's one of his babies. So you've got two really hot creators that are just firing on all cylinders. What more could you ask for? Finally, a book by Arnold Schwarzenegger. No, but it is Conan the Barbarian by Jim Zub, and it was Roberto De La Torre and Doug Braithwaite, but they've moved on to other projects. So now the artist is Fernando Dagnino, and this is classic Conan. This is the type of Conan book that even if Robert Howard wasn't writing it, but he came back to life, this would be the type of Conan stories, one, that he would write, but more importantly, that he would love to read. Jim Zub is a scholar of both the writing style of Robert E. Howard and his purple prose and the absolute love that both of these creators, Robert E. Howard, who created Conan back in the 30s, and Jim Zub, almost 100 years later, this is their baby. Jim Zub is the new Roy Thomas, because Roy Thomas shepherded Conan at Marvel for many, many years, and Jim Zub is a worthy successor to that, because he does go back and write the stories so that they can be represented that Robert E. Howard wrote back in the day in prose. He does give us modern day interpretations of those stories with artists, but he also crafts his own tales. And, right now we're marching towards, I believe, King Conan in the book, but for almost 30 issues, this book has been going on, and it is absolutely one of the best reads you will ever sit down and feast your eyes upon. So if you're not reading Conan, I strongly suggest that you change that, and you change that now. Don't worry, he's not going to die. He just got sick in the last 15 minutes. Next up, we have Escape. And this is Rick Remender and Daniel Acuna from Image. And we get the story of Milton, who is a dog, as you can see, an anthropomorphic character. And he is a gunner in pretty much a World War II B-29 Superfortress. And they get shot down over enemy territory. Now he's got to escape, just like the title says. But they know about where he landed, where he fell, where his plane was destroyed and fell out of the sky. So he's got the enemy who their costumes strongly resemble Nazis. So, it's almost like a back to a 1930s, late 30s, 40s tale from World War II. He's got to take care of himself. He's got to get back home to his family. And the whole time he's being hunted. So I guess you could say it's kind of like The Running Man set in World War II. So Rick Remender just never ceases to amaze me. The stories that he comes up with. Fear Agent way back in the day. And then you get brand new stuff like this. He's helped out on the Tin Can Society. He's also writing Sacrificers, which is one of the best books. One of the best books on the shelves, guys. Sacrificers, just every single time that it hits the shelves, it's a treat. It is something that you open up and you take a moment and you find a quiet corner to sit and give it the reverence that it deserves, because it is telling the story of Pigeon and telling it magnificently. But to get back here, the story of Milton, I do believe, is going to be just as powerful, if not more powerful than the story of Pigeon and his story of retribution. This is a story of survival. Next up, Falling in Love on the Path to Hell, and this is by Jerry Duggan, Gary Brown, Chris O'Halloran, and Sabino and Gray. I like the artwork first on this book because it reminds me a lot of Tom Mandrake. It's scratchy. It's got, cross-hatching lines and things like that. But I keep coming back for the story because you have the unlikely pair of a 1800s, Bill Hickok pistol whipping type of, cowboy out there who was really just a dastardly foe in life. He was just a bad guy. And then he meets up with a samurai from the same time, but from a totally different culture. And they're trapped almost in like a purgatory. It's an island with a guy who calls himself, doesn't call himself king, but wants to run things. I believe his name is Mohan. And they're trying to escape Mohan because Mohan is trying to recruit both of them into his cause. And pretty much every night when the sun goes down, then the island gets infested with a big crowd of practically zombies. And through this, they have to fight off the zombies each and every night, and then they start over the same thing the next day, trying to find a way off of the island, off of this purgatory. Well, these two fall in love, and they're not as concerned with getting out of there for themselves now as for getting out of there for each other. So it's a pure love story set in the backdrop of an unimaginable Hades, purgatory, hell, whatever you want to think of it as. But you get this amazing artwork. You get this story that will last the test of time and hopefully bring these two characters together when all is said and done. Next up, Flash Gordon, again by Jeremy Adams. Unfortunately, Will Conrad has left this title, but we do get artwork here by Tom Derenick. And then there is a different artist that came on board, I think, with issue 11. But again, Jeremy Adams makes me care about a character that I care nothing about. Flash Gordon, one of the pulp heroes from the 1930s. Here we go again with Conan. Somebody that, I tried reading Conan back when Kurt Busiek and Cary Nord were penciling it and writing it. And, it kept my interest for a minute, but this book here, this has kept me interested in Flash Gordon for at least 13 issues now. And I will have to say I'm going to have to reevaluate how many books I'm picking up, because with my wife in the hospital and an uncertain future for 2026, I'm going to have to whittle away at my list. But this book, as long as Jeremy Adams is writing it, I will be there for it. Story of Flash Gordon, Ming the Merciless, and everything in between. You just get science fiction kind of swashbuckling adventure, in the things that George Lucas read as a child before he built this empire that we call Star Wars. That's where these kind of books was what gave him the impetus to create Star Wars, to create something like that. He wanted to have his own swashbuckling, large saga set in the stars. This came first, and right now it does it better. Rook Exodus. What hasn't been said on the internet about Rook Exodus? Gary Frank, Jeff Johns, Jason Fabok. Let's try that again. Jason Fabok is doing an absolute amazing job. You get this story of these wardens on the planet Exodus, and they have carapaces or helmets that allow them to connect with various forms of creatures. Rook, of course, as birds, but you have people that are wardens over wild dogs. You have wild boars and pigs. So these wardens were meant to kind of, keep the animal population not necessarily under a jack heel boot, but it would make for better communication between these animals and the humans that are living in the world that they both live in. It's just, I don't know, this book is so exciting and so fun that it's hard to explain. But Rook was trying to build a spaceship, to get off of Exodus. And something happened terribly to that ship in the first issue, and so he's stuck here. There's no escape, at least not any that he knows of. But he's still fighting, trying to build machines, trying to build some way that if he can't leave, at least he can be comfortable and not have to fight each and every day for life and for continued survival. So it's not like John Wick. I was going to say that it was like John Wick, but it is an action adventure. So maybe it's more along the lines of something like Commando. But it's absolutely one of my favorite books. And I hope that if Jason Fabok takes another, sabbatical, that they will wait for him to continue telling this story. Because this book just came back, and I think it came back with issue 6, and then 7 is out. And we're waiting on issue 8. But do yourself a favor. And if you haven't picked up the first trade for Rook, or even a hardcover, I think they had a really nice deluxe hardcover just come out. Yeah, do yourself a favor and get that for yourself for Christmas. You will not be disappointed. All right. The Power Fantasy. I'm not going to lie. I've enjoyed reading this because it's something heady and it's expansive. But up until issue 12, I had no idea what the heck was going on. I've had so much going on this year, just like a whole lot of people have, that it's hard to stay focused on something that is thick and has grandiose ideas. It's not, it's not a beat 'em up type of series. In fact, Etienne, who's the main character here, is one of 6 superpowered kind of brothers and sisters that keep the world in check, but they also keep themselves in check. And you know how that goes when you have family, whether it's the family that you want or the family that came to you. So I'm going to sit down, now that I'm putting all my books in order, I'm going to sit down and read this whole series and see if I can't get a better grasp of exactly where we're at, where we're going. But if you like things, it's very similar. It's as far away removed from something like Rook Exodus as, let's think, backgammon is from chess. Okay, they're both games, they're both things that you can play, but they have different cerebral thought patterns that come behind them. And this is one of those books that you really have to find a corner and take your time with it and slow down your life. Don't be on your phone while you're trying to read it. Don't be listening to a podcast in the background. This is a book that, at the end of the day, demands 110% of your attention, and I love it for that. And that's the reason that I'm continuing on with this. By the way, the artist is Caspar Wijngaard, and he brings this world to life. He brings these characters to life in such a way that I hadn't been able to put this book down, even though I really haven't been following it as well as I would like to. Next to the last actual book is The Last Boy, and it is a coming-of-age tale about Peter Pan by Dan Panosian with art by Alessio Avallone. And this is something that I said, I'm going to try this. It's got to be different. And boy, was it. Peter Pan wants to be a boy forever. He never wants to grow up. Wendy loves the stories that she has, lived and heard and told. She wants to be a writer. And her mother, tries to, I keep trying to say disregard, and that's not correct, pushes her away from being a writer. She says, you'll have time to write once you marry. Your father is dying. He wants you to marry. You need to do this for your father. Stop being selfish and do something for your father instead of for yourself. So to take the world of Peter Pan and turn it on its head like this, excellent job, Dan Panosian. And the art really makes you feel like you're in Neverland. It is light and airy, but it gets dark because Peter Pan faces a foe that he's never faced before, and it causes him to do the one thing that you do when you grow up. Question your actions. Question, am I doing the right thing? And last but not least, we have Transformers. Daniel Warren Johnson just finished his run, and it was something else. It was a love letter to the characters. It was a love letter to G1. You got to see the heroism of Optimus Prime and the Autobots put on full display each and every month against the dastardly Decepticons. Not gonna lie, I didn't really gel with that story that he put out in the Absolute Batman miniseries, annual. So his my thought process on DWJ has fallen a few steps, but this story here supersedes any kind of shenanigans or political leanings or whatever was going on when he wrote and drew that other story. The art by Jorge Corona matched his almost in style perfectly, and Jorge Corona was there lockstep. So if you love these 80s properties and love what Robert Kirkman and company are trying to do with the Energon universe over at Image, pick these books up. Pick up the trades of Transformers or pick up the hardcovers. And Robert Kirkman himself and Dan Mora just took over with issue 25. And unfortunately, Dan Mora is only going to be on the book for 6 issues, but I can't say that I don't know who could come behind him and between Jorge Corona and Dan Mora, for the first 32 issues of this title, and Daniel Warren Johnson for the first 6 issues as artist. But, that's a hell of a powerhouse art team for that long on that title. So it'll be interesting to see when Dan Mora moves on, who is going to be the new artist on that title. So that's the top 10 books of the year. Now we have some honorable mentions here. Absolute Wonder Woman. It's the only Absolute book that I'm still reading. Out of all the titles, I dropped Batman, I dropped Superman. Green Lantern by Al Ewing was complete whack. I have no idea what that was all about, but I just didn't care for it. So it didn't make it past the first issue. But Absolute Wonder Woman has melded the Amazonian with a witch aspect, and I can't stop eating it up. It's excellent. The pacing, the timing of the stories, you're getting to learn more about who she is as a person as well as who she is as a superheroine. And it's, like I said, about Aquaman, it's made me care about a character that I knew nor cared nothing about. And it's amazing that Wonder Woman would be the one book out of all of those that I stuck with. But to me, Absolute Batman was too over the top, and I get that that's the point of it, but just couldn't get behind it. And Absolute Superman by Jason Aaron seemed like it was pushing some sort of political agenda that I was like, I'm not going to spend my money on something that I disagree with rhetorically, and I'm just not going to do it. As $5 it can be better put towards a gallon of gas or 2 gallons of gas, or help pay the light bill. I don't need to read something to be preached to. Anyway, this is not preaching to me. Diana here is a very strong character, just like she is in the main DCU, but she's got all of this goddess, almost like a Kratos from God of War type of situation, where she's so much more than meets the eye, both at power set wise as well as who she is and what her motivations are. So that's my first honorable mention for this year. Okay. Beneath the Trees Where Nobody Sees, and this is Rite of Spring. So the first miniseries was 11 out of 10. This one is about a 10 out of 10. It's lost just a little bit of a step, but it's still, you're getting to see Samantha the Bear in this title, and she is manipulating one of her murdered compatriots' sisters comes to town and is trying to find out about who killed her brother. And Sam realizes why she's there and just toys with her. So it's got a Hannibal Lecter type thing, quid pro quo. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. But to me, it's just not got the same hook, because now we're in on the joke that Samantha is a murderer, a serial killer, and without that punch, this story just doesn't hit quite as hard as that original miniseries. But I'm here for it. I do like it. I just don't absolutely love it. Okay, next up, Robert Kirkman again with Skinbreaker, and written by Robert Kirkman with art by David Finch. This book is one of the most magnificently beautiful books on the shelves. To see David Finch do interior artwork again is just above magnificent. The cross-hatching, the line work, the detail. It's not McFarlane, but it's about as close as you'll get to McFarlane-esque, unless you want to go the cartoony route like Carrie Andrews. But this book here is telling a generational story of a tribe, and the chief is getting older, and one of his associates has protected him all these years by doing the things that the chief could no longer do, but he did them, when nobody was looking. So he protected his chief. Well, it's come down to there must be battle between this character and the chief, because he is caught by one of the other pretenders to the throne. And in that instance, he says, if you won't challenge him, I will. And so he challenges the man who's been a mentor and like a father, if not a father to him. It's really great. It's multi-layered. It's multi-generational. It tells a story about family. What's not to love? All right, next to last is The Seasons, once again by Rick Remender. Are you noticing that there's a lot of indie books on this title? And in this video, and there's also a lot of Rick Remender and Robert Kirkman in this video. But you've also got Paul Azaceta and Matthias Lopez. And The Seasons tells the story of the Four Seasons sisters, of course: winter, autumn, spring, and summer. And they are assailed by a circus that comes into town. And the circus has nefarious means. But what I love about this title more than anything in the world is the artwork. It reminds you of the Winsor McCay stuff from back in the Little Nemo days. It's almost like watercolored. It is beautiful. It's some of Paul Azaceta's greatest work that I've ever seen him do. And you can't go wrong with this book. You cannot. It's up there. It was about the 11th book. I just had so many great books that came out this year that I fell in love with that it didn't quite make the cut. But if you haven't been reading this, do yourself a favor and pick it up over the Thanksgiving break. All right, and last but not least, honorable mention, we have Ultimate Spider-Man. This book has fallen off just slightly, simply because I like my artists to be consistent. And Marco Checchetto doing 2 issues and taking 2 issues off and then coming back for 3 issues and taking 2 issues off is driving me nuts. Nothing against David Messina. He's a very talented artist, but they have 2 totally different styles, and I came for Checchetto. But you have Jonathan Hickman writing the title until it finishes. with issue 24, but it's still, in my opinion, worlds and leagues above Amazing Spider-Man. So there's nothing more that can be said about this book, really. And it's been gushed upon for almost 2 years, and now it's coming to an end. So if you want to, just wait till it's finished, and they'll come out with either a couple of hardcovers or probably an omnibus, and you'll be able to read the whole thing in one fell swoop. But that's what I think for the 10 best books of this year and 5 honorable mentions. You guys hit me in the comments and let me know, what are your favorite 10 books, 5 books, 3 books? What are your top favorites? What did you read this year that changed your life? What did you read that made you go out there and want to be a better person, want to be a better version of you? Or that just simply entertains you? So let's talk about it in the comments, guys. The algorithm apparently changed on YouTube, and so I'm trying to figure out how much content or what kind of content will really, get me back in the good graces of YouTube. So help me out by liking and subscribing to the channel. If you all tell one friend, I've got 247 subscribers right now. We can get to that 500 mark just like that. So thanks for enjoying the channel. Thank you for being here with me. I hope that you're gearing up for a wonderful Thanksgiving or whatever holiday you are going to celebrate next. Thank you for always being here for me. And thank you for letting me talk about the things that I love. All right, guys, that's it for this video. We'll see you next time. Have a wonderful day.